Welcome back to What's the 411 News, where we bring you news observation, interpretation, and news commentary from an FBA and BGR perspective. Let's get it. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to What's the 411 News. Glad to have you in. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so we can build our channel and grow. All right. So let's get into it. We got some updated news regarding Jayland Walker. All right. Some updated news regarding Jayland Walker. I appreciate y'all, man. Glad to have you guys back. And so we're gonna get right into it, man, and let y'all know what we got. All right. So yeah, as you guys already know, we did the story here about Jayland Walker in regards to him being shot probably over 40 times. All right. And from what we're finding out here, it's looking like Ohio officers won't be charged in shooting of Jayland Walker. All right. Walker's death last June sparked widespread protests in Akron, Ohio. All right. And so, yeah, let's get into it real quick. All right. An Ohio grand jury declined to indict 8 police officers who fired dozens of rounds in the shooting death last year of Jayland Walker, a 25-year-old black man, the state's attorney general announced Monday. All right. Saying the officers were under threat because Walker had fired a gunshot at them during a car and foot chase. All right. I'm going to let y'all marinate on that for a second, and I'll read that again. All right. So according to the state's attorney general, he was saying that the officers were under threat because Walker had fired a gunshot at them during a car and foot chase. All right. Walker's death last June sparked protests in Akron after police released body cam footage showing him dying in a hail of gunfire. Police said he had refused to stop when they tried to pull him over for minor equipment and traffic violations, though they haven't specified further. Police say Walker fired a shot from his car 40 seconds into the pursuit. Before we go on here, if I'm not mistaken, I think the chief or the sheriff of that department, if I'm not mistaken, mentioned that he had no weapons on him at the time he was shot, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but we're going to move on here. Just something to think about, all right? Walker's death received widespread attention from activists, including from the family of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., the NAACP, and an attorney for Walker's family called on the Justice Department to open a federal civil rights investigation. All right. President Joe Biden responded to the shooting during a trip to Ohio last summer by saying the DOJ was monitoring the case. All right. Monitoring the case. Officers chased the car on the freeway in city streets until Walker bailed from the still moving vehicle, ignored officers' commands, and ran into a parking lot where he was killed while wearing a ski mask, body cam video showed. So as much as the shootings have been going on, when it was police shooting unarmed people, and I would think at this point, a lot of people would be scared. And so their first reaction would be to run. You know, they're looking at it from the standpoint of most likely hearing other stories of people getting shot. And so it must have been a thing of not wanting to get shot. All right. It's as simple as that. As simple as that. All right. So let's move on here. Authorities said he represented excuse me here real quick. He represented a threat. A handgun, a loaded magazine, and a wedding ring were found on the driver's seat of his car. All right. A gun, magazine was located in the driver's seat of the car, allegedly, right? All right. Walker took at least one shot from his vehicle at police, and then after jumping out of his car, he ignored commands to stop and show his hands. All right. There is no doubt he did, in fact, shoot at police. Walker reached for his waistband as officers were chasing and raised his hand. The officers, not knowing he left his gun in the car, believed he was firing at them, again at them. Now, you're going to tell me that somebody, okay, it's one thing, you see somebody, they say that he was reaching in his waistband, but I don't recall in that video looking like he was reaching his waistband. Looked like he was running to me, right? Looked like he was running. And then they claim he raised his hand, so they were, and because they didn't know that he left his gun in the car, they believed. Okay, believing something and actually seeing something with your own eyes are two different things. All right, notice the wording in here. Believe he was firing. Okay, there are certain signs of being fired at. Some people notice one or the other, or both. Some people notice the muzzle flash from a gun, and you hear sounds, right? The muzzle flash, the sounds, and if he hit anybody, let's say hypothetically, if Jayland Walker was actually shooting at somebody and he actually hit somebody, somebody would have went down, and these would be all these type of indicators to know that, hey, you being shot at. But they just said they believed he was firing a gun, as opposed to knowing he was firing a gun or seeing that he was actually firing a gun, right? Again, it's something to marinate on and think about. All right. Let's see here. All right. Yost, I don't know who this Yost person is, said it is critical. I guess that might be the prosecutor or the attorney general or one of the representatives for the police. I don't know. Yost said it is critical to remember that Walker had fired at police and that he shot first. Why is it critical to that? It's also critical that his gun was found, and I'm sure it had to have been said over the radio, right? So let's not be, one-sided with this thing. You're saying it's critical because he shot at, and that's under debate as well. If he even shot at him while he was driving, right? But if they're getting out with the car and they see the gun there, right, in the car, I'm sure they had to get on the radio, say, dispatcher, we got a gun in the car, right? Or we found the gun in the car, we see a gun in the car. If this is before anything going down. And that seems kind of weird because they said let me go back and think about this for a minute. They said the gun was in the car early on in this article here. And then later on saying they didn't, they believed he was firing the shot. So if they actually knew prior to him running out of the car and taking off that the gun was in the car, right? If they already knew this, and I'm sure they relayed that over the radio, other officers had to have been told, right? Dispatcher, you tell a dispatcher, hey, there's a gun in the car. We found the gun, some ammo, some magazine, all right, a wedding ring, so on and so forth. If this was all found out before the shooting taking place, I was sure officer would say, dispatcher, the gun's in the car. And then the dispatcher will relay that to other officers coming into the scene, right? And all this, I believed, you either know this person got a gun on them or you don't. If your eyes are that damn bad, you might not need to be on the police department, because if you can't see good and you make a mistake and then they find out you have some bad vision, something's wrong. You need to be removed because you can pose the same threat and danger again, right? All right, so Yo said it is critical to remember that Walker had fired at police and that he shot first. Dashcam video from a police cruiser captured images of Walker firing the gun from his car, said Anthony Pearson, which is an assistant state attorney general. Walker had no criminal history and had never fired a gun until he went to a shooting range with a friend in early June, according to Pearson. Pearson wouldn't speculate about Walker's state of mind that night and said there was no direct evidence that he was suicidal. That night he encountered the police, he wasn't acting himself, Pearson said. By all accounts, he was a good person, a good man. So he, that night he was encountered the police, he wasn't acting himself. If he wasn't acting himself and you knew this, see, these are all indicators on how you might need to approach a situation. How did they, know all this before him getting shot, right? So Walker's family called it a brutal and senseless shooting of a man who was unarmed at the time and whose fiance recently died. Police union officials said the officers thought there was an immediate threat of serious harm and that their actions were in line with their training and protocols. Interesting. Walker had been grieving his fiance's recent death, but his family had no indication of concern beyond that. A family representative previously said. The blurry body camera, look at all these, I'm gonna read it and I'll say something next. The blurry body camera footage did not clearly show what authorities say was a threatening gesture Walker made before he was shot. Again, you can make all the threatening gestures in the world, but if you see nothing in a person's hands, then what is the point of you shooting? All right. I'm sure this department and plenty other departments around have been told, officers being told to watch the hands, right? Whether or not everybody takes heed to all that advice is a different thing, but you were told, or I'm sure they've been told at some point, you watch the hands of a person because it's only the hands that can do things to you, whether it's pick up something to attack you with or attack you with their hands itself. And to have a gesture, if you see a certain gesture, then you get yourself prepared. You just don't start busting because of the gesture, right? You get yourself prepared in case you need to start shooting, right? And so you have that dynamic. So again, the blurry body camera footage did not clearly show what authorities say was a threatening gesture Walker made before he was shot. Police chased him for about 10 seconds before officers fired from multiple directions, a burst of shots that last 6 or 7 seconds. So they chased him for 10 seconds. At what points during that 10 seconds before they started shooting at him, busting on him, did he make the gestures, and when did the gestures stop? When he made the gestures, what did you see in his hands when he gestured? What was he doing during his gesturing? Right? Something to think about. The 8 officers whose names have been withheld from the public initially were placed on leave, but they returned to administrative duties 3.5 months after the shooting. A county medical examiner said Walker was shot at least 40 times. The autopsy also said no illegal drugs or alcohol were detected in his body. After taking over the investigation last summer at the request of Akron police, Prosecutors with the Ohio Attorney General's office presented the case to the grand jury. City leaders have been meeting with community leaders, church groups, activists, and business owners ahead of the grand jury meeting, while also preparing for potential protest. All right. And lastly, the city created a designated protest zone downtown outside the City Hall building where workers put plywood over the first floor windows. There's also temporary fencing around the county courthouse. Less than 24 hours before the chase, police in neighboring New Franklin Township had tried to stop a car matching Walker's, also for unspecified minor equipment violations. A supervisor there called off the pursuit when the car crossed the township's border with Akron. All right. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. All right. And you guys let me know what you think. Like I said, this looks like there's a few holes in this thing, and you know, some things to be questioned. They believed he was firing a shot. Again, you believing and you knowing if you're being shot at. Even the average citizen, you know, I've watched videos where one that comes to mind in particular is a video where there was a shooting at a club. And as soon as shots rang out, people knew that they was being shot. There were shots coming from somewhere. And that's just the average person on the street, right? Whether they seen the gun or not, they knew there were shots being fired because of the sounds. And maybe there was stuff ricocheting off of things. All right. And then they chased them for 10 seconds. And again, like I said, during that 10 seconds of chasing them, you know, when did the gesture start in that 10 seconds? When did it stop? What did you see? What did you not see? All right. These are all questions that need to be answered. And the fact that you should know when you see a gun, especially if you're chasing somebody. It's different if your back is turned and maybe you hear shots and you turn around. Maybe you don't see where the gun, who has the gun. But if you're following somebody, even if their back is facing you and they're gesturing as if like maybe to try to act like they have something on them, then you're supposed to go, you know, as you're chasing, you looking for cover because you don't want to be standing out wide in the open, right? And even if there's nowhere for cover or, you know, somewhere to protect yourself from shots, then you got to keep a sharp eye on what the person's hands are doing as you're chasing them and be ready for some shots. But if the person has their back turned and you just start busting on them, that ain't a good look. It's as simple as that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you guys let me know what you think about this particular situation here, man. Looks like they won't be getting charged for this particular situation, right? And it's very unfortunate because, like I said, there's a lot of holes in this situation. All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, comment. Let us know what you think about this case. And again, be sure to subscribe to the channel and help us grow. All right. With that being said, no matter where you are around the world, you can always bet on the new Black media. I'm out. Peace. Welcome back to What's the 411 News, where we bring you news observation, interpretation, and news commentary from an FBA and BGR perspective. Let's get it.